all the way down. The cancer was healed immediately. The process of shedding the cells is like cleanup. After the other energy abandoned those cells. That's all that is. The cancer, when it healed, was instantaneous. Everything else was just cleanup in the body's, getting rid of the tumor. What is occurring right now on this level is cancer. You have a consciousness. Let me just back up here so you understand some of these things. Why am I saying it the way I am saying it? Well, one, I'm supposed to say it like this. This is something everybody needs to know. Am I the first person that's talked like this or known this? Of course not. Everybody's connected to, can connect to God. You're going to find out most of you have been disconnected in a lot of ways, but they haven't been able to disconnect every way, of course. Otherwise, cancer itself could not spontaneously heal. But again, when God commands the mind, it takes what is in your mind, your personality, your experiences, and puts it together around the truth. And if you don't have the words for it, it will direct you to an experience where you can extract a metaphor. This is the beauty of individuality and how it embraces that. So an artist can say what I'm saying in a picture. A musician can write a song that expresses what I know with notes. God will intervene and command and embrace the individuality of everybody with the truth. It's the beauty of everything. So that's the beauty of individuality. As people, it's going to be so neat because as people start to learn this stuff through connecting to the Creator, and it's going to happen, you're going to see all these really neat, different individual expressions because God took in them, and assembled in them the understanding through their point of view. It's already happening in a lot of ways. It's fantastically wonderful. And it's going to go against this whole idea of cloning, getting everybody to dress alike, talk alike, act alike, think alike, all of these things. That goes against the nature of God. God wants that individuality. Otherwise, everything's boring. So now you start to have an understanding of, somewhat of the scalar nature of your reality. Now, I know I used the example of half of your consciousness used for yourself and the other half being used by something larger. And that was just a way to get you used to the idea, but it's a little bit different from that. You can look at it, this is also another basic example, but I'll give you an idea of roles of your existence in scalar reality. A very basic example could be, 8 electrons, right, in an electron orbital of an atom. So 8 energies, 4 pairs of couplings, different frequencies that phase cancel each other out or alter their phase and amplitude for interference patterns. One way you could look at that would be, say you make the pointing sign with your fingers, the number 1 sign with both hands, and then point your fingers at each other, leaving about 1 centimeter in between the 2 tips, about 8 inches in front of your head. Now what you'll find is if you change the focus of your viewing that, you can change it so that it appears as if you have 2 fingers and a floating little finger in between them. What is that really? They're both transparent as far as your focus is concerned, but when they interfere with each other, it looks like there's a piece of mass there. That's how your eyes are seeing it. And that's a good example of interference patterns, of standing waves. It's basically what your body is, a combination of all kinds of standing waves, of interferences, of different parts of the energies. But you'll find if you do that and you hold your fingers that way and you see the finger floating in between your right hand and your left hand, you don't have to move, you don't have to change anything other than your concentration, your allocation to how you're going to perceive that. And with focus, you can learn to see just your right finger in right hand without changing anything, without moving anything, or anything, just change in perception. Then you can see your left hand. Then you can see it all together. You can see both hands completely with both fingers and the floating finger, but with no gap in between it. So it's not floating, you see everything at once. So that's 4 different ways to see the same thing from this fixed point of view. That could be a good analogy for consciousness of your scalar relationship. It isn't exactly like this, but generically as a model, you could see your consciousness then, rather than now seeing it as half for you and half for that using you, you could see it as the floating finger, like the first example. That's what everybody's locked into right now. They see themselves as the floating finger, not knowing that they're an interaction between 2 different types of energies. All right, that's what everybody believes. They believe they're this floating finger and have no comprehension. Imagine if your floating finger, when you do that, was self-aware, had no idea you were the one intending to do that you were holding your hands that way. It just saw itself as the floating finger, without any comprehension of how it's there or why it's there. But if you weren't attacked like this, and you were operating correctly, you would also be able to see yourself, for example, as, say, we'll just use the right hand, where you can shift it to where you see the right hand and finger, which would be seeing yourself from the consciousness point of view of the components that make you up, and down and down and down from there. Shifting to your left finger, metaphorically, could be seeing yourself as part of something larger. And then the final completion of the valency of an orbital of an atom, which would be having 8 full electrons, you would be allowed that 4th point of view, which is seeing everything or being aware of everything at once, if you choose. It's that last state of mind that animals can go into, that every creature on this planet unaffected by this agenda and what's happening is allowed to do. People that have spontaneously healed from cancer have gone into that mode, and so it had, of course, a scalar effect of the consciousness making them up and their relation to higher, and so the energy animating the cancer cells realized, disconnected from those cells, rejoined your energy, and then those cells are shed. You start to understand then what is matter. The surface of the Earth is the interaction between the core, which could be like a proton nucleus of an atom, and the dark energy around the Earth, which you call the magnetic field, even though it's in shells or rings that move like a conveyor belt through the center of the planet, just like the energy in your body does that. It's like a long donut where it can just move through your body that way. Well, the Earth has the rings and orbitals of dark energy around it too, so the orbits around the Earth are already there. That's what the moon is in. What are the different atoms, though? Well, what are the different life forms on this planet? You see, say you took your hand and put it into a sandbox and scooped up some sand. And let's pretend that sand is the proton energy, the ignited energy, the male energy. When I say proton energy, to me it means protons, or that energy in a nucleus of an atom, the core of the Earth, the sun, the